They visit the quarters of their next hero, where they see a massive man sleeping. Hilda wakes him up, telling him it's his turn to fight. The man gets up, and we meet Raiden Tamimin, mankind's greatest sumo wrestler. Raiden wonders if he'll be merging with Hilda, but she says there is someone more suitable for him. A giant woman named Thrud enters the room, introducing herself as his partner. Raiden is shocked seeing her, and Thrud wonders if he's disappointed seeing her appearance, but Raiden is actually pleased, saying she is perfect, and this makes her heart melt as she turns into his divine weapon. We see the next fight is set in a sumo-themed arena, and Raiden is introduced as an undefeated sumo champion. His opponent arrives on an elephant, and we meet Shiva, the god of destruction. The fight begins, with Raiden instantly charging at Shiva and drop-kicking him in his face. Shiva gets pushed back, but he quickly recovers. Raiden continues to attack, landing a punch, and he knocks Shiva to his knees. He wants to end things quickly, attacking with a knee strike, but Shiva blocks it, glad they are having a real fight. Raiden is pushed away, and Shiva grabs onto him, smashing his chest and launching him into the air. Raiden lands on his feet, and Shiva is happy to see he is a worthy opponent. In a flashback, we see a 3-year-old Raiden as his parents wonder what's wrong with him because he can't even stand. One day, while his parents are preparing supper, they are surprised to see him standing, but his legs are shaking. His parents are overjoyed to see this, but as he takes a step, Raiden suddenly feels pain, and his parents watch in horror as his body falls apart. All the bones in his body are broken, but we learn it's because his muscles were just too powerful for his bones. Despite this, Raiden tried his best to walk, and he eventually managed to do it, as his body produced even more muscles to restrain his power, creating a shell, which was known as the 100 Seals. Back in the present, Raiden slaps himself and unlocks his 100 Seals. His muscles start to go berserk, and Shiva wonders if he's going to destroy himself. But he calls on Thrud to help him out, and he is able to put his muscles under control. We learn that the lines on his body are actually his Volender, and it gives him total control over his muscles. Gaul becomes shocked realizing Raiden became the strongest while his power was restricted by his 100 Seals. Raiden's body stabilizes, and he charges at Shiva, punching with all of his might. Shiva is blown away, and he feels the difference in Raiden's power. Everyone cheers for Raiden, and Shiva seems to be barely standing. Raiden tries to finish him off with a headbutt, but Raiden is the one who ends up taking damage. Shiva counterattacks, punching him away, as he reveals his head is as hard as stone. Shiva starts attacking him with a flurry of attacks, and all Raiden can do is block. Raiden takes some damage, but he grabs onto Shiva's arm, and he uses his brute strength to crush it instantly. Shiva kicks him away, and everyone sees his broken arm. The gods tremble, but the Indian gods know Shiva better, and they cheer him on. Shiva hears them cheering for him, and we learn he has never let his friends down. Shiva realizes he is fighting for their sake as well, so he gets fired up, charging at Raiden, and his punch seems to have gotten stronger. We learn that his fists have the power of over 1,000 Indian gods behind them, and Raiden tries to fight back, but Shiva hits him with a devastating blow, making him cough blood, as Shiva attacks with his head. Raiden doesn't back down, countering with his own headbutt, and the two keep smashing their heads together. In a flashback, we learn that the Indian gods were fighting each other to determine who would rule over them. During that time, Shiva and his friend Rudra were just unknown gods, living carefree lives. But their territory is attacked by another group of gods. They go out to confront them, but they get laughed at as the gods think they are nobodies. However, they end up beating those gods, and after the fight, Rudra tells Shiva about his dream to stand at the pinnacle of India, wanting to see things no one else has ever seen. He tells Shiva to join him, saying they can go anywhere if they work together, and Shiva decides to go with him, thinking it will be fun. Together, they beat the other gods, and with every god they defeated, they would gain their strength, but it would also increase their responsibility. They eventually go up against the god named Indra, who is said to be 10 times stronger than the other gods. Rudra fights him alone, and he eventually comes out on top. They dance together to celebrate their victory, and they later reach the top, having defeated all of the other gods. However, at the pinnacle, Rudra tells him they need to fight, because only one god can stand at the top. Shiva doesn't want to do it, but Rudra insists, so they end up fighting. They trade blows, in what is now known as the most ferocious fight in the history of India, and Shiva eventually gains the advantage. Rudra refuses to give up, reminding Shiva about his dream, so Shiva decides to throw the fight, but just as he is about to admit defeat, Rudra beats him to it, knowing he lost to Shiva. Rudra tells Shiva not to go easy on an opponent who's going all out, and Shiva gains the name of Rudra, making him the chief of all the Indian gods. Back in the present, Shiva starts dancing to the rhythm of the cosmos, and the other gods recognize it as the war dance which he used to unite the Indian gods. Shiva moves erratically, dodging Raiden's punch. Raiden strengthens his legs, trying to attack again, but Shiva easily dodges and kicks him away. Shiva proceeds to give him a beating, and Raiden appears to be helpless against the assault. But he pumps up his forearms, creating a massive meat shield to block all of Shiva's attacks. Shiva's dance sets his body on fire, and he continues to pound Raiden with his burning fists. Shiva manages to break through his shield, as he strikes with his leg, burning Raiden's body. Everyone thinks mankind is about to lose, but Raiden suddenly smiles, as he realizes he can fight his opponent with all his might. In a flashback, we see a 5-year-old Raiden as he has a sumo match with his senior. He easily defeats his senior, and Raiden celebrates his victory, but his senior is injured, and everyone starts seeing him as a monster. He asks his mother why he isn't like the other kids, but his mother tells him his strength is a gift from the gods, so he must use it to help the weak. After that, Raiden grew up as a good man, and he is supposed to stay in his village, but one day, a volcano erupted, destroying all of the crops and causing a famine. Raiden knows the people are suffering, so at the age of 17, he leaves the village and goes to Edo, planning to become a sumo wrestler to earn money for his village. He enters a dojo, where the trainer tells him to have a match, but he refuses, not wanting to hurt the other wrestlers. But a wrestler named Ozaki challenges him, telling him to go home if he loses, so he accepts the fight. Raiden immediately charges at his opponent, but Ozaki is able to stop him, and he gets thrown to the side. Raiden is shocked by this, but he keeps charging at Ozaki, who keeps beating him up. As Raiden lies on the ground, Ozaki asks him what he thinks about sumo, and Raiden discovers his love for sumo. After that, Raiden devotes himself to learning sumo, and one day, he has his first match, where he easily throws his opponent out of the ring. He goes on to overpower other wrestlers with a single move, turning him into a living legend. He feeds the people in his hometown, and everyone starts looking up to him, but during one of his matches, he realizes that his opponent is afraid of him. This makes him remember the time he hurt his senior, so he ends up throwing the match. Ozaki asks him why he did this, but he sees Raiden crying, as he realizes he is using his powers to bully the weak. To prevent himself from injuring his opponents, he stops using his 4 strongest sumo moves, but despite this, he goes on to win more than 95% of his matches, and he only lost fights when he threw against much weaker opponents. Back in the present, Raiden assumes an unusual stance, stomping his foot, as he prepares to use his palm thrust. He flexes his leg muscles, as he jumps toward Shiva, transferring all of his strength to his hand, as he unleashes his technique. Shiva tries to block it, but he gets blown away, and even loses 2 of his arms. Everyone thinks humanity has won, but Shiva gets back up. Raiden suddenly takes damage, and Gaul wonders what's going on. Hilda explains that Raiden's technique puts strain on his body, and his body is being ripped apart, but his Volundra is holding him together. Thrud is worried about him, but Raiden tells her to move his muscles even faster. He knows it won't be good for his body, but he wants to put his full might into sumo, so Thrud lends him her powers, as she decides to support him. Shiva feels a gust of wind, as he sees Rudra watching his fight. He is happy to see him in the arena, along with the other Indian gods who believe in him, so he becomes determined not to lose. Shiva stabs himself in the chest, grabbing his heart and forcing it to beat faster, causing fire to surround his body as he transforms into his ultimate form. The two charge at each other, exchanging blows, as Shiva uses his burning legs to attack Raiden, burning his muscles. Hilda knows Raiden is at a disadvantage, because he will lose muscle as the fight drags on, but Hermes notes that Shiva's technique is just as dangerous, and it could end up burning his body away. Shiva attacks Raiden from behind, and Raiden tries to grab onto him, enduring the flames, but Shiva counters, kicking him in the head. The other sumo wrestlers start to lose hope, but Ozaki points out Raiden is still on his feet, fighting for all of sumo, so they cheer him on. This gives Raiden more power, as he charges at Shiva with his head, knocking him down. Shiva gets back up, but his body starts falling to pieces, so the Indian gods realize he's close to his limit. However, they know that Raiden is in a similar situation, so the fight has become an endurance contest. The two clash, and the crowd goes wild as they exchange blows. With both fighters fighting for something bigger than themselves, they are putting everything on the line for this fight, but they both approach their limit. Raiden prepares to use his palm thrust again, and Shiva tells him to bring it on. They charge at each other with their ultimate skills, but Shiva's attack overpowers Raiden, ripping his arm apart. He thanks Shiva for allowing him to use all of his might, as he tells Thrud to release his Volunteer, but she chooses to stay with him, saying she has fallen for him. Raiden admits he had a great time, and Shiva finishes him off. He thanks Raiden for giving him the greatest fight ever, and as he walks away, Raiden's soul proceeds to shatter. As Shiva leaves the arena, he encounters Rudra, who catches him as he falls. Zeus approaches him, saying he's in bad shape, as Shiva admits he almost lost, saying humans are awesome, and Zeus laughs as he agrees with him. Meanwhile, Gaul mourns the death of Thrud, asking Hilda why they are going so far to save mankind. Hilda adds Raiden's cup to the altar of fallen heroes, saying they are now 2-3 against the gods. She gets emotional, but she is determined to save mankind. We see Zeus approaching a tree, where he finds Buddha eating some chocolates. He wants to have one, but Buddha won't let him have any, and he eats all of the chocolates at once. Zeus asks him to fight in the next match, saying he doesn't like losing. He threatens Buddha with his aura, but Buddha quickly calls him the boss, and he tells him to enjoy the show. We see Buddha as he enters the arena. He grabs onto the announcer's horn, and he declares he will be fighting on the side of mankind. The gods think he has gone mad, but Buddha claims that if the gods aren't willing to save mankind, then it's up to him to do it. Gaul is confused, asking Hilda why Buddha is fighting on their side, wondering if this is part of her plan, but Hilda claims Buddha doesn't take orders from anyone. We see that just before the round, Buddha approached her, after she just mourned for Raiden. Buddha tells her that he wants to fight for humanity, but she isn't surprised. He asks her if things are going according to her plan, because she asked him about his powers before Ragnarok began, so he thinks she's been scheming to get him to fight the gods. Hilda denies this, as she points out that everyone knows he hates the gods. This makes him laugh, but he warns her that he doesn't take kindly to being manipulated, before walking away. We return to the arena, where the announcer tells Buddha that he can't switch sides, but Zeus says he doesn't mind, revealing that Buddha isn't breaking any of the rules. Odin asks Buddha if he is prepared to be the enemy of all gods, but he doesn't care, saying he's the only thing that matters, making all the other gods mad. Buddha asks Zeus who he's going to fight, and light comes out of the sky, as a ship descends on the arena. The 7 gods of fortune make their entrance. The announcer says that only one of them can fight. Their leader reveals that they are actually one being, as he removes his armor. His companions enter his body, and a bright light surrounds him, creating a sphere, which shatters as a god named Zero appears. Zero wants to slaughter Buddha, as he warms up his body, but Buddha doesn't seem to care. His back bulges, and he pulls out his weapon, as he prepares to fight. Gaul thinks it's not fair for 7 gods to combine into one, but Hilda calls it his true form, revealing that he used to be a good god that wanted to spread fortune, but he ended up being changed by sorrow. In a flashback, we see Zero going to the city, where he sees the people suffering. It makes him cry, and he wonders what he can do to make them happy. He thinks about removing the source of their misfortune to make them happy, so he goes to a boy, touching him with his hand, and absorbing his misfortune. The boy instantly feels better, and the people start worshipping Zero. He continues to absorb the misfortune of other people, but after several years, he has absorbed too much, and it takes a toll on his body. He returns to the city, wanting to see how the people are doing, but he discovers the true nature of humanity, as the people fall into depravity without misfortune. A man bumps into him, causing him to fall to the ground, and Zero recognizes the man as the boy he helped years ago. He asks the man how he's doing, but the man doesn't even remember him, telling him to get lost. Zero can't believe that any of this is real, thinking about everything he's done for them, and wondering why the people are still unhappy. At that moment, Buddha arrives with his disciples. Zero notes that Buddha's disciples look shabby and poor, but he wonders why they looked so happy, unlike the people in the city. Zero calls out to Buddha, asking him why his followers look so fortunate, because he absorbed the misfortune of humans, but he only made them worse. Buddha tells him that fortune can't be given, and that it must be obtained, saying there is shadow where there is light, and tells Zero to join him to achieve enlightenment. Zero cries as he runs away, feeling jealous, because despite being a human, Buddha was able to make people more fortunate, knowing that it's supposed to be his job. As he mourns by a river, a dark energy suddenly surrounds him, and his love transforms into hate, turning him into the Zero that he is now. 3 people see him in the woods, and they immediately run away, as he chases after them. He is about to kill a woman, but she stops, shielding her baby. This causes Zero to hesitate, and he resists the urge to kill, dividing himself into the 7 gods of fortune. Back in the present, Zero thinks it's his time to punish Buddha, but Buddha suddenly kicks him, knocking him to his knees, as Buddha reminds him that the fight has already begun. Zero gets back up, attacking with his axe, but Buddha easily evades thanks to his special eyes. Zero becomes angry, swinging his axe wildly, but Buddha dodges every attack. Zero becomes frustrated, and his axe seems to grow in size. Zeus reveals that Zero's axe absorbs misfortune, and it gets stronger the more it absorbs. Hilda adds that Zero's inability to hit Buddha counts as misfortune to him, so he will get stronger as the fight drags on. Gaul is impressed by Buddha's ability to dodge, moving before Zero even attacks, and we learn that his eyes give him the power of precognition. Zero continues to miss, asking Buddha if he's mocking him, and Buddha suddenly counterattacks. Buddha taunts him, making him even angrier, and Buddha proceeds to give him a beating. The battle appears one-sided, but Zero suddenly remembers his past misfortunes, and he unleashes a powerful aura. The axe absorbs his misfortunes, and it becomes ridiculously massive. Zero swings his axe at Buddha, but Buddha stands his ground, activating his staff. The axe obliterates everything in the area, but Buddha's staff transformed into a shield, protecting him from the attack. Hilda reveals that Buddha's staff is a divine treasure, which contains the power of the 6 realm guardians in Buddhism, and it changes its form depending on Buddha's emotions. Buddha pushes the axe back, as Zero transforms it into a serrated sword. Buddha's weapon takes the form of a club, and it signals him to charge in, so he dashes at Zero, dodging his attack as he lands a hit. In a flashback, we learn that Buddha was born as a prince of a royal family in ancient India, and he had everything a man could ever wish for. One evening, his father the king tells him about his destiny to become the king of the world. He helps feed the people in his kingdom, telling them it's the duty of royalty to bring fortune to the people. One day, he meets up with his distant relative, King Jataka, and they talk about Buddha's destiny to become the king. Buddha thinks Jataka is happy because the kingdom is prosperous, but Jataka reveals that he isn't fortunate because he's suffering from a life-threatening disease, and his entire life, he has done nothing but serve the people, so he has no idea what the outside world is like. Jataka eventually passes away, and everyone mourns his death, thinking he lived a happy life, but Buddha knows this wasn't the case, and at that moment, Buddha thinks about his life, and how his fortune was given to him. He gets off his horse, and starts laughing, saying he has been enlightened. He goes to Jataka's funeral, where he throws flowers everywhere, and he takes Jataka's casket. Everyone condemns his behavior, but he doesn't care what they think, because Jataka doesn't need their prayers, saying true fortune is found within. He takes Jataka's remains to the river, where he leaves his casket floating, and he leaves everything behind to go on a journey into the wilderness. He finds a group of men trying to achieve enlightenment by starving themselves, and one of them has collapsed from hunger. Their leader claims that it's the only way to purify the mind, but Buddha gives the man some food, telling him to eat. The leader condemns his actions, but Buddha doesn't care, saying he wants to feed the man. The group starts following Buddha instead, and he teaches them to lie down and chill instead of starving themselves. One evening, a girl is about to be sacrificed to the gods, but Buddha saves her. The worshippers worry about the wrath of God, but Buddha tells them he would gladly fight the gods. Hilda notes that Buddha despises anyone who tries to force destiny on others or deprive them of inner happiness, so this is the reason he's fighting the gods. Zero twists his weapon, transforming it into 2 swords, while Buddha turns his divine treasure into a poleaxe. They proceed to exchange blows, but Buddha has the advantage with his precognition. Zero ends up getting slashed, but this just makes him angrier as his weapon transforms once again. His blades approach Buddha, but Buddha's weapon takes the form of a knife, and he is able to destroy the blades. He manages to close the distance, and their weapons clash as the crowd starts cheering for Buddha. Zero becomes upset nobody pays attention to him, just like in his past, and he suddenly extends his weapon, almost hitting Buddha. Buddha tells him he needs to love himself, but Zero calls it nonsense, trying to attack him. Buddha claims he has taken a liking to him. Zero thinks he's lying, but he looks at Buddha and sees the sincere look on his face. This makes him realize that he just wanted to be like Buddha, who is loved by everyone, as his weapon slowly loses power. Buddha throws his weapon away, saying he wants to fight hand to hand. They start fighting each other, as Zero realizes that Buddha is the one who understands him the most, finally feeling happy as Buddha knocks him down with a punch. The crowd cheers for Buddha, and Zero's misfortune leaves his body, allowing him to return to his true form, wanting to make people happy again. However, his horns suddenly return to his head, causing him pain, and two dragons come out of his body. They encircle him, forming a sphere, and a massive demon emerges from it. Buddha jumps away, unable to read its movements, and he wonders what's going on. The demon explains that Zero is no more, and he introduces himself as Papayas, the Demon King. Buddha wonders what he wants, and Papayas isn't sure, but says he wants to test out his power. Ares asks Hermes about Papayas, but even he doesn't know anything. Hades suddenly joins them, saying Papayas isn't a god, as Ares quickly gives up his chair for him. Hades reveals that Papayas is a legendary berserker from the underworld, which is where the damned run rampant. He tells them that despite being the king of the underworld, he has never seen Papayas before, and he wonders why a god would turn into him. Buddha starts fighting with Papayas, but it seems he can no longer predict his movements. Hilda notes that Buddha's eyes allow him to see the flickers of the soul, which moves before the body, but Papayas' soul is total darkness, so he can't see anything. Papayas decides to fight with his full power, flexing his arm as he turns his weapon into a drill. He charges at Buddha, who tries to defend with his shield, but the drill penetrates right through, taking out Buddha's eye. Papayas is impressed he was able to dodge the attack, because he was aiming for the head. He transforms his arm into an axe, and he continues his assault. They continue to exchange blows, and Buddha ends up taking another hit. Ares wonders how Papayas is so strong, and Hades states that no ordinary god can hold a candle to him. He reveals that Papayas once destroyed half of the underworld, and the destruction only stopped because he suddenly vanished. This occurred centuries ago, long before Hades became the king, and he never believed that story. He thinks Papayas is there because someone must have obtained a fragment of him and created something like a seed, which was then planted on Zero. Ares wonders who would do such a thing, and Hades thinks there's only one god who would enjoy such a thing. Hermes knows he's talking about Beelzebub, who would have done it just to see what would happen, saying anyone could have been the vessel. Buddha tries to counterattack, but he gets stabbed in the foot. He falls back, but his injuries are starting to take a toll on him. He calls on Zero, thinking he's still somewhere inside, but Papayas laughs, saying he has already consumed Zero and turned him into nourishment. Buddha declares he will kill Papayas, as he feels hatred for the first time in centuries, causing his weapon to transform into a scythe. Papayas is unfazed, eager to take him on, and Buddha strikes first, but Papayas manages to block his attack. Buddha pushes him back, creating an opening, and his scythe expels fire to boost his speed as he tries to finish him off. However, Papayas ends up blocking it with his arm, and Buddha is the one who gets stabbed. Papayas wonders if he has any last words, but Buddha gets closer, saying he'll be the one to save mankind. Papayas finds him dangerous, kicking him away, and Buddha is badly injured, but he refuses to give up, calling Papayas a chicken. Papayas tells him to know his place, saying he has become a supreme being, because unlike before, when his body couldn't handle his strength, he now has a stronger vessel, so he's confident in his power. Buddha calls him weak, saying that he is even weaker than Zero. Papayas charges at him, telling him to prove it as he launches an assault on Buddha. Ares wonders if this is the end of Buddha, but Hades tells him to look at Buddha's eye because he still hasn't given up, and Zeus knows he's just waiting for a chance to turn the tables. Buddha gets knocked back, but he stays on his feet, and Papayas wonders how he's still standing. Buddha tells him to bring it on, which scares Papayas as his hands start shaking. He refuses to accept this, ripping off his arm to conquer his fear, and he turns it into a sword. Buddha charges with his scythe, but Papayas counters with his own skill, breaking the scythe. The weapon returns to its original form, and Papayas rushes at him, ultimately destroying Buddha's staff. It looks like the end for Buddha, and Papayas goes in for the kill, but at that moment, he gets a vision where he sees light behind him. As he reaches out to it, there's a hand that grabs onto him. Buddha regains consciousness, and he suddenly starts laughing. Papayas thinks he has lost his mind, but as Buddha gets back up, he says he has overcome his immaturity. His hairband breaks, causing him to take on a new appearance, and he takes Zero's weapon, telling Zero they will fight together, as he activates the Volender technique. Hilda cries as she realizes the weapon is absorbing Buddha's love instead of misfortune, turning it into a new divine treasure. The weapon takes the form of a strange sword, and it has the power of the 7 gods of fortune. Buddha goes toe-to-toe with Papayas, and humanity cheers for him with everything they have. Their desires flow into him, giving him strength, as Papayas wonders how he can keep fighting despite his condition. Buddha parries his attack, and they both land an attack on each other. Kojiro thinks the odds are against Buddha because he has just taken too much damage. Papayas attacks with his skill, damaging Buddha as he blocks it, but Buddha manages to parry, creating an opening, and he lands a counterattack. Papayas can't believe his strongest attack was stopped, but we see the gods saying that Buddha won't be able to block the attack again. However, Hades says he just needs to dodge. We see Papayas launching a barrage of attacks, but it seems Buddha can now dodge. Because of Papayas' fear, Buddha can now see the flickers of his soul, allowing him to dodge the attacks. Papayas becomes frustrated, unable to land a hit, so he uses his ultimate skill, slicing Buddha in half. Everyone is shocked seeing this, and Papayas thinks he has finally won, but Buddha's body disappears, and he reappears behind him. He lands a decisive blow, slicing Papayas into pieces, as humanity celebrates the victory. Papayas refuses to accept defeat, trying to attack Buddha, but before he can hit him, his soul shatters. Buddha sees Zero's soul smiling at him as he joins the 7 gods of fortune, ascending to the sky, and Buddha says farewell to him. Buddha is announced as the winner of the match, and humanity cheers for him as he leaves the arena. Hilda and Gaul rush to him, celebrating his victory, but he suddenly collapses from his injuries. He receives medical attention, and he reminds Hilda not to be so serious all the time. Meanwhile, the gods realize that the score is even once again, so Zeus says they must win the next match no matter what. Hades volunteers to fight, shocking them all, but he says he will avenge his brother Poseidon. Gaul freaks out as she learns about this, saying there's no human that can defeat Hades. Hilda selects humanity's next hero, saying there's only one man capable of going against the king of the underworld, and she reveals that that person is none other than mankind's first king. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.